We are still at the whim of countries that can easily ramp up and decline their oil supply production.
It's a pricing strategy designed for profit.
For motorists, it's the pricing roller coaster that leaves many scratching their heads.
It's a very difficult game.
Argonaut's oil and gas analyst Philipp says when it comes to petrol, we're at the end of the food chain.
It's actually a very long and involved process that requires hundreds of thousands of people to actually get a drop of oil from the ground all the way through to your bowser.
Although Australia produces oil, it's generally not the type we use in our cars, and that means we're completely reliant on importing it.
About 30% of the world's crude is produced by the Middle East.
Russia, Canada and the US are also big producers of crude oil, which makes petrol there cheaper.
Australia is a very, very remote country, and as a result, it takes a very long time for things to get here.
The biggest cost comes from finding the oil and extracting it.
You've got the exploration, so just finding the crude oil itself, then you've got the extraction process, so you've got to put a drill ship over the deposit, then you've got to extract it out of the ground.
Philipp says developing an oil field takes years and costs hundreds of millions of dollars.
And the general success rate of exploration, particularly deep water, is about 10 to 15%. So as you can appreciate, when you're spending $100 million on a well and you've only got a 15% chance of success, when you do actually strike it lucky, you do want to get a return on your money.
Then the oil needs to be converted into petrol. Australia used to have 9 refineries, now there's only 4, 1 in Kwinana and Queensland and 2 in Victoria.
The refineries historically have been a loss-making business. We had the large companies like Shell and Caltex still has a refinery as well.
Which means most of our petrol is imported from overseas, the majority from Singapore.
It costs a lot more and adds to the price of petrol, whereas in Singapore they specifically set themselves up as a refining hub.
And it's Singapore that sets the price we pay at the bowser.
And as a result, we are subjected to the Singapore refinery prices and not necessarily crude oil prices.
By the time it gets into your petrol tank, for many, filling up is a very expensive exercise. But when compared to the rest of the world, Australia is among the cheapest. In fact, it's the 4th cheapest in the world. And that's because many other countries are taxed at a much higher rate.
It's been trending downwards over the last few months, and we've seen that flow on to the metro prices.
Lynn Gould from Fuel Watch says at the moment we're enjoying cheaper petrol.
And so then you're looking at more like $18 that you might be saving at the bowser, depending on where and when you shop.
And that's because there's an oversupply of oil being produced overseas, predominantly from the US and Russia, meaning the price has dropped $50 a barrel in the past year.
We're producing much more oil than the world actually needs, and hence why the oil prices fall.
For consumers, it looks like the dream run is set to continue for now. But with so many factors at play, nothing is guaranteed.
For motorists, we would expect that the oil price would continue to go down, but with the important caveat, if the Australian dollar also continues to go down, that does have a balancing effect on the cost of oil importing into Australia and thus petrol prices.